Welcome back to the It Starts With You podcast. I am so excited to have our guest on today, Ansley Barreto. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, we are going to have such a great conversation today around so many things business, wealth. So let me give Ansley an introduction so you know what to expect. So, Ansley Barreto is a business and wealth coach and the founder of The Thriving Business. With a passion for helping purpose driven entrepreneurs, Ansley is dedicated to seeing others thrive in a work life balance that aligns with their values. After quantum leaping herself by starting and scaling multiple businesses to over $2 million in revenue, Ansley confidently sets her direction, manifests her dreams, surpasses her income goals, and supports thriving entrepreneurs along the way. Her methods combine manifestation, mindset, and marketing, offering a unique approach to achieving seven-figure dreams effortlessly. Ansley's mission is to guide thriving leaders to time freedom and recurring seven figures that they deserve. And I know that that is going to get people's attention, right? Because being able to grow a successful, thriving business and have time freedom is the dream that people want.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic in my world for sure.
So, Ainsley, you've obviously done a lot of different things. I want to dive right in and ask, what do you think has been your biggest key to success in everything that you've done?
Yeah, so this is quite the, loaded question because I feel like along the way there's been lots of things that have attributed to my success, but being on the entrepreneur roller coaster of ebbs and flows, and I don't view that as a bad thing. Like, the law of rhythm, it's a flowing ebb, right? So I don't view that as bad, but I have had those moments in the beginning where I didn't have clients in my businesses, and then I have had, thriving success. So what the unpopular opinion I find is the going inward and the intuition and making sure that my business is going to be aligned and I'm manifesting what's right for me and I know how to manifest has been pivotal to my success.
Okay, so tell me. So I'll be honest. Like the word even manifesting is such a
I
not.
know.
I don't want to say controversial, but it's such a divided word. So tell
Yeah.
us more about what do you mean when you say like learning how to manifest?
So I know that it's controversial, and I think that's because many people do different things with it. Many people claim to be manifestors or they think that they're manifesting one thing in their life, but it's not showing up. And so that's why I think that people get this bad stigma behind manifestation. But what it really is you're telling your outer body to make the actions of what you want from your subconscious, if that makes sense. So when you go inward and you subconsciously say to yourself, these are things that I want in my business, and you can get behind the confidence of embodying it to actually do the steps to need it, that's where a lot of people fall off the wheel there, so to speak. And it doesn't happen because they don't take the actual steps. They just sit there and meditate all day. So I feel like it gets a bad rap because yes, you need the introspection and yes, you need to go in, but you also need to embody the confidence to actually do those aligned actions, but only doing those aligned actions. So we're not going to be doing the busy work in our business. We're not going to be doing things that aren't going to actually take us to that goal, essentially.
And I love that you talk about the importance of both, right? Because I see people, and this is like the deeper and the longer that you are in entrepreneurship, the more you get. I always say the more woo you get. Like that's what I always say. It's like you
Yeah.
get more and more woo the more you get in your business. Because I think as a business owner, or even as a high level leaders, like you are forced, I say, to face like the deepest, darkest parts of yourself when you are in
Yeah.
something that is bringing out every piece of you, and so you are clinging to, at least this is how I've experienced in conversations I've
Yeah.
had. You're clinging to anything and everything to help you get you through the roller coaster that it really is. And so I've
Yeah.
seen people on extreme ends of both of this where they're
Same.
manifesting, but they're just sitting around, meditating and like, with the rocks, what is it, and
The
saging
crystals.
and
I was just
the
going to say the
crystals.
crystals.
And I
Yeah.
have those
Yeah.
now. I've started to get into that because I went to Sedona, but then they're like this far and they're not actually doing these. They're not outreaching. They're not getting in front of people for their business. And then I see people on the other end where it's all hustle,
Yeah.
like force. So,
Yeah.
how does somebody find that middle?
Well, and let me be honest, like you can achieve this success with the hustle. I'm not saying that you can't, but you're going to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened to myself. I've seen it happen to peers and colleagues. And that's why a lot of the times people come to me, is because they either aren't getting anywhere in their, coaching and consulting and leadership and mentorship business, or they're burnt out and they're just like spinning their wheels, doing the wrong things that aren't actually moving them into place. And so when we think about the beautiful hybrid that I've created, which is both, I really am careful with my time. And when we say time freedom, to me, that's wealth. So when I say I'm a wealth coach, yes, of course, it comes with the success and the money, but it's also the time freedom, because we don't want to just be living life like Groundhog Day. And it's funny because it is Groundhog Day tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
So a bit of a timely pun there, I guess. But, so it's kind of that I don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again and living a life that is not fulfilling to me. But I don't also want to be, spinning the wheels and going the other direction too. So how I like to kind of do the hybrid is really taking care of my time and going into the introspection first. So I have a daily practice where I do my future best self meditation, and I'm a meditator. I'll fully admit that. But guess what? All the really successful, wealthy people that, have these like huge, massive, businesses like Tony Robbins or Oprah, whoever we want to kind of connect to here, they also do the same thing. There's no way they get to where they do without some alignment piece. And so once you really go into the work of doing the introspection, the second step is kind of like assessing where you want to go. That's really important too, because you can't just jump and leap without having an actual direction that's aligned with you. And whether that's 7 figures, whether that's, only working 3 days a week, whatever that looks like for you, and knowing that it's possible. And then we remove anything that's in the way of that. So it sounds simplistic, but once we start doing the work, it can actually be, it can be work, right? It doesn't just happen overnight, but I find that when we remove those, and I'm still removing blocks, like I'm 8 years into entrepreneurism, and I'm still figuring out, oh, that's a limiting belief that's underlying the surface there. I got to nip that in the butt and get it out. And so when you remove these blocks and it's a clear plan and path that you have in front of you, you're going to only do the little steps that you need to, and you either hire out the rest or you figure out a better way to make your schedule so that it's actually going to work for you, if that makes sense. If that answered your question, that was a bit of a long, answer.
It is so, you're bringing up so many good points. So I'm like jotting down, because I have two questions, and it's going to take us in two directions. So I'm going to start with one, because based on what you said, I know that this is landing for people. And again, no matter whether you are in an organization, you're new into entrepreneurship, you have a side hustle, you've been in it for a long time, I know that you can relate to what Ainsley's saying, in the sense of, how do we have success in our definition of success in a financial standpoint, and also where we're not burnt out? Because that's the things I hear the most from people as well. I've experienced it the same way, is how you feel like, I just need to do more, I need to hustle more, I need to make more money so that I have this financial success, but then you're totally burnt out. And a lot of people have not figured out that magic sweet spot of what you're talking about. So my first question that I want to ask from what you said is, because, for people who, and you probably experienced this, people who are so used to the hustle culture and are so far removed from this idea of meditation and manifestation and alignment. Because like you said, if we look to the most successful business owners, to the thought leaders, Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, all of, whoever you follow, they do this stuff because they know that it's the key to success. But I feel like when us more common folk who aren't at that level yet start talking about it, people who aren't used to this kind of give you this like crazy eye. So what did you do to help you make the transition from starting to do some of these things, and maybe some people's perspectives going like, that's just, she's losing it,
she's on like cloud 11 or something?
Like what's going on?
Truthfully, I invested in myself with a coach and mentor, and I'm not here to like plug myself in, obviously, but this is what I help people with, like getting out of the fact that it has to be woo-woo. You don't have to think of it as woo-woo, and I'm not sitting there and saying meditate for 20 minutes every morning. It's really a simple, like collective inward inspection of 5 to 10 minutes max, maybe. And I do more now just because I'm comfortable with it and I see the value in only receiving answers for myself that are kind of like of your highest self, whatever people want to believe that
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's funny, I'm not even a religious person, so I just believe that it's kind of a universe connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of getting the smaller steps and just starting to, and you know, you don't have to tell people that you're doing this work. I find people are
Mm-hmm.
afraid sometimes, like they don't want to tell their friends that they're meditating or that they're taking the time and, you know, journaling and going through what's going to be the key for them. It's just kind of going to be between you and your coach or mentor, or you deciding on which way you want to go down. But
Mm-hmm.
I find it helps to have the community and have that coach and just realize that you're not alone and there are other people that are high achievers doing this, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Because that was the biggest thing for me when I first started was this being scared about spirituality. I just thought I had this like, and this was a limiting belief that I had, right? Of I see those people as not high achievers and not making enough money. And
Mm-hmm.
so once you start surrounding yourself with people that are making the amount of money and are high achievers and they are doing both, the whole paradigm shifted for me, really. It was like, I can actually do more. So I can do less and actually make more. Like, I want to sign up for that. Like, please,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I had a similar complex because I also come from not corporate, but I started my journey on marketing and I went to school for marketing and I did marketing for resorts and
Mm-hmm.
sports marketing and stuff. So I come from that environment. And then I've now completely shifted to this because of the lifestyle that I want to live.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you point that out because looking to people who we aspire to be, who are making the amount of money we want, who are living the life we want, who have the freedom or flexibility, like whatever it is that you want in your life, if you're
Yeah.
not looking at people that are doing that thing, well, then of course you're going to start now trying to create a path to success that doesn't feel right for you. So it's finding the people that are actually living into and have careers and have lives that you want, and then going, okay, now how do I emulate what they're doing? And like
Yeah.
you said, for a lot of people, if you're looking to have that level of freedom, that financial success, whatever it is, they are doing these things. So it's like, why would we reinvent the wheel? Why don't we find and surround ourselves with people who are doing that? And
Yeah.
also care a little bit less about what other people think that you're doing.
That's the reality. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I think too, like I've done lots of programs, I've worked with lots of coaches. And so I've done the whole just strategy, just I don't like to call it masculine energy, but just the
Mm-hmm.
yang energy of just being in the hustle and this works for me, so it's going to work for you. And that's not sustainable and it doesn't work. So that's why I believe the hybrid is beautiful because we're going to figure out what's going to work for you long term because that's the only way to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't bring it out of you, nobody can tell you exactly what's going to work for you. I'll give you all the puzzle pieces, but we piece together your puzzle based on you and who you are and
Mm-hmm.
what's aligned for you marketing wise, sales wise. Like there's so many different ways to get to, you know, seven figures or to scale successfully, but it has to be in alignment with you. Otherwise the burnout happens, or otherwise you start to feel like, okay, I'm having this success, but I feel like it's not my path. And
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you need you'll just keep needing pivots, I find. And so
Mm-hmm.
we want to avoid that because we want to create like a blueprint essentially that's just yours, that's unique
Mm-hmm.
to you. And the only
Oh,
way
I
to
love
do
that.
that is the hybrid.
I love that blueprint that's unique to you. And we're jotting that down. That's such a good point because
Yeah.
and when I'm coaching executives, high performers, speakers, and we're talking about so often what gets in people's way is their definition of success and constantly seeking external validation where
Yeah.
they're not really fully clear and aligned on what it is that they want, so they just keep seeking things, those accolades, that external validation, whether it's money or titles or things like that, but then every
Yeah.
time they get there they're not fully fulfilled, and it's like, well, I thought this was going to be it. So then they go for the next thing and the next thing. It's because, like you're alluding to, is they're looking at someone else's blueprint. So I love that you're focusing on what is right for you.
Yeah.
And another thing that I really want to highlight, because this is a very real struggle that I hear from people who are like, okay, and they might be listening right now and going, okay, Ainsley, this sounds great. I'm going to work on time freedom and I'm going to delegate out and I'm going to hire out, but that's not my reality. So what do you tell people if they're feeling like right now, like, okay, this sounds great, but in real life, this isn't going to work? Like, what are some small things that they could start doing right now where they could actually start to get like a taste of how this could be for them?
Yeah, so I'm going to start back at the beginning with you. And I do this with every client, whether they work one-on-one with me or whether they work in a group setting, because people come from all different places, right? We can come from any walks of life. Your experience is different than my experience in life. But what we have to do is we really have to start at the beginning and figure out, if you want the, non-woo-woo strategy way,
Mm-hmm.
this would be planning out what you want your business to look like. And so we have to start there, because if we don't know where we're going, then we're just going to start in the middle of the forest. And it's like all paths are available to us, but which one's right for us? So if you want the woo-woo answer, then we have to go inward and we have to view what's the best version of ourselves. And I have to start living like that today. Because like we mentioned with time, we only have so much time. And this is how people really quantum leap in myself and in my world, is collapsing the fact that we can do that now as opposed to 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
We can start charging this much for our services. It's just a paradigm of getting comfortable with charging that much for our services. And that's one of the huge strategy things, if you will, a part of everybody's blueprint. And I know we talked about this a little bit before recording, is you can have these little workshops and, the little memberships and stuff like that. That's great. That's a part of your business. But when you look at the math in the strategy, and then you look at, so if you can get where I'm saying, I include both here, right? So we look at the math, but we also look at what's going to be our ideal design of life, because anything short of that, you're just selling yourself short in this lifetime, to be honest. Like, if you're not going to be living the life that you want to, and especially as an entrepreneur, we can design it. We have the luxury of designing it, right? So when we look at, okay, I want to make $50,000 a month or $100,000 a month, but my services are $99 an hour or whatever the case is that really going to happen? It's not likely going to happen, right? So if you aren't into the woo-woo, go at it from a mathematical perspective of saying, let's figure out how many clients I'm really going to need to make my financial goals. And then how much time do you want to be working? All the other pieces of the puzzle coming together. If we're looking at it from the introspection, it's going to be, what do I want my actual life to look like? And I work the business around that, not the other way around.
Oh, it's so key. And this is it's so timely and also so relevant. So I have an episode out there. I talk about a word of the year, and the that I picked for this year
Yes.
was embody. And
Yes.
it's because, so a lot of the work that I've done around just for myself around like, ooh, how can I embody? How can I show up as that person now? I'm in a really huge growth here in my business. We're stretching and working with, really high level programs and growing the business. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is, like, every new step you take, you're going to be stretched. And so this journey never ends of having to
No,
come back
no.
and look at like,
Yeah.
how do I want my life to look? And also look, reflecting on last year, which I'm sure you do with your clients, and going, ooh, what went well and what did I not like? And so for
Yeah.
me, the word is embody, like, ooh, how can I embody that now? And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
again, for those of you listening, check out that episode and rewind and listen to Ansley again when she's saying, whatever direction you're coming at it from, you have to look at it from the perspective of, what do I want? What do I
Yeah.
not want? What do I want? And then you got to like sit and think with that and also put some numbers behind it so that you actually can do it.
Yeah. Well, because what happens is if we don't do that, we start just going down the rabbit hole of watching what everybody else is doing, especially on social media. Oh, that coach does this, that consultant does this, and that's how they made their success. But then if we scale it back and we take a pause and we go inward and we realize that's not going to bring me to where I want it to bring me, I'm going to have to forge a different path. And that's great. That's okay. That's what we want. But we really need to step back first to get that perception on what it is for us that's really going to work, and take it to the next level. And then obviously the next step, as I mentioned, is the blocks. And then after that, it's kind of the alignment of, if I want to make this amount of money and I want to charge this month, I then have to embody like you were saying, embodiment. And then and that's something I work really closely on my clients with, because that's the only thing that's actually going to put it into action. We could do this stuff all day long, right? We can know the knowledge, but unless we do it in our bodies and embody it, it's not going to
Mhm.
happen. And so with embodiment comes, okay, I will be charging high tickets for my or premium prices for my services. One, because I deserve it, and two, because I have a lot of knowledge and the imposter syndrome goes away. That's a really big thing with my clients.
Mhm.
And again, that can be done through lots of exercises and work by yourself, or you can hire a coach to help you with that and kind of like
Mhm.
expedite the process.
I'm so curious, and as you're talking, I know you mentioned like you've tried, you've been on the roller coaster, you've tried all the different things. Do you have a moment or a situation that was really the catalyst for you of really changing the way that you do your business into this new model?
Um, it kind of like a culminated. So
Mm.
I started my entrepreneur journey so I was in the corporate world and then I started traveling around the world. And I thought naturally, the next step is to be a travel agent. So
Mm.
I opened up this travel agency and I did that for a while. I did it for 6 years before I sold it. It was great. I met some amazing people, but I felt so misaligned with it because I was answering phone calls on a Sunday for people like canceling their flights and stuff. And I was looking at my bank account and I was like, I work so much and that's what I get. Like, didn't I join entrepreneurism to be in a
Mhm.
better place, like financially, time freedom wise? And so, the whole pandemic happened and the business model kind of shifted. And I started a subscription box, which again, it did really well and I loved it. But that was almost the other aspect where I was making quite a bit of money and still feeling unaligned. And so I really had to think to myself, I have to look inward. And while I was doing that, people were coming out of the woodworks and asking me to help me with their businesses. So it kind of came naturally.
Mhm.
And not to say that I didn't do work for it to come, obviously, but it came naturally. And when I started to get into alignment of me being a coach and then me doing all this work that I'm talking about and working with a mentor myself and starting to bring more spirituality, woo woo, introspection, manifestation into it, it was like that whole other world of me being an agent and a subscription box owner seems like a lifetime ago. I can't
Mhm.
even. It's
Mhm.
just so it's got me here. It's a part of my story and I love it. But it just goes to show you that the money will come and go, but the impact that you're making really is important. And the money kind of comes because of the impact that you're making.
Mhm.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it
I feel
definitely
like,
did. I think, because people love to just hear people's stories and to know like what led you into this because everybody
yeah,
has something that led them into this. And I've heard
yeah,
multiple speakers lately when I've been at events or just been looking at things online reference, I think it was Steve Jobs quote around I'm going to butcher exactly how he said it, but like you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. And I've heard multiple
right.
people reference this lately and it just feel like it keeps showing up, right? So to highlight for people is we can't always see why things are happening until we like really look back and we like connect everything to be like, oh yeah, that's what led me into this and now it's
Yeah,
all making sense.
yeah. And,
Mhm.
one of the mentors that I worked with, she always says, you can find out your unconscious beliefs, like your limiting beliefs, essentially, by kind of looking at the outside world and the world that you've created. So the
Mhm.
belief there is that it starts inward first, and whatever your thoughts are whatever your subconscious thoughts are, kind of create the dynamic of your world as
Mhm.
it's existing. That's obviously more on the woo woo side,
Mhm.
but it is true. Like when I've shifted my energy, my paradigm, I will get a message and somebody wants to work with me. Like it's really
Mhm.
been that powerful for me, and I get that that's on the very very woo side. But
Mhm.
again, I create the hybrid of we can do that, but we also have to make sure that we have the foundations that we need underlying that will allow you to be in that energy of receiving, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. And this is something that I bring even to corporate organizations, which is so far beyond what they're usually listening, like learning about. So, energy leadership is an assessment that I deliver in organizations, and it's all these different levels of energy that we bring. Because
Yeah,
we have to remind people like this is a science. Like this isn't just us making this stuff up.
yeah,
Everything is made up of energy, your
for
thoughts,
sure.
your all of that. And so, bringing that and helping people to realize that the energy that you're bringing into situations is directly impacting your results. We just don't think of it that way usually.
It
And
is absolutely.
so when you mentioned that thing around, we have a joke in my household that when you're so attached to something, like you need something to happen, and you usually repel it,
Yeah.
versus if you're more open to it and you're in the right energy. So we have a joke that on the days that I'm not working, or I have, I'm doing stuff with my son, or we're on vacation, like those are the days that I'll get an email saying, "Hey, we want to work with you," or "Hey, we want to close the
Yeah.
deal."
Yeah.
But the days that you're like sitting at your computer and like sending all these pitches, like those are the days you don't hear anything. And it really does come down to how attached are you to the outcome of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always analyze. I forget how to say this word all the time.
Oh wait,
Analogy.
yeah, yeah, I totally
Whatever
gotcha.
the
We're
analogy word
you're not
is.
alone.
I always do it as like, if you're looking for a romantic partner and you're dating, are you ever attracted to that person that's like super clingy and like desperate energy and you don't even know why? Sometimes you're just not attracted to them, but that person that like is doing their own thing and they seem to be like loving their life and they get back to you when they can, are you more attracted to that person? Absolutely. And it's the same in
Mhm.
your business as well. But
That's such a
again, we
good
have
point.
to
Yeah.
do the work before we can even get there. If you're just starting and you're like, that rabbit from the, what's that?
Mhm.
I saw that show the other day, the running rabbit or
Is it Roadrunner?
the road
No? Yeah? Roadrunner? Is
the
that the one?
road.
Or
And don't get me wrong, if you're just starting, everyone's excited. You're excited to be, that energy is great, but we also have to make sure that, it's going to be with the energy that needs to come with actually attracting people, and
Mhm.
attracting people to us. That's a very different energy than, like you said, repelling and trying to chase.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just so important to have the both of having the foundation so that when you do attract those people, you're confident and you show up and you say, yes, I have this program that's perfect for you. Here's what I charge confidently, and knowing
Mhm.
that it's aligned with your bigger vision. That's really
Mhm.
the key, guys. That's the key to the success here, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And also, for those of you who are listening who are like, well, this isn't necessarily applied to me as much from a business perspective, I want you to realize that everything that Ainsley and I are talking about, this relates to any area of your life. If
Yeah.
you want to have, if there's like a certain lifestyle you want to have, if you want your health to be a certain way, if you want to be around certain people and relationships and community, if you want your, personal life to be a certain way, all of these same concepts apply around, first you have to get clear on what it is and start to show up as the person who has that, who lives that way. And then you also have to create the plan. They go hand in hand and you can use it in all these different areas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Totally agree. It's true. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many great things, Ainsley. So before we wrap up, a couple things is first, what would be, so I know we kind of talked about this before, but if you had to give someone like just one thing that they could do right now that they could start to implement some of the things you talked about, what would be the one thing that you could recommend to them that they could start doing?
So yeah, it really depends on kind of where you're at and what your business is or what you're doing for work and where you're looking at. But again, the starting of the introspection and seeing and just assessing your life right now and your business right now and seeing if it's really aligned with what you want. So that would be the very, very first step. And that can take you like half a day. I'm not telling you to rush it, but it can be done very quickly. And soon you'll start to see either the math isn't going to add up or your time isn't going to add up. Usually it's both, but it's usually, one of the two things that are kind of factoring. And if you're a coach or consultant and, you're charging that smaller amount only, you don't have anything else to offer that's going to really scale you and bring you to your income dreams, I would challenge you to switch something in your flow there in your funnel. And so that's kind of like the strategy way to get
Mm-hmm.
started. That's what I would look at, and look at too from a perspective of, what do I want for my life? Do I want to be able to travel a lot? Do I want to be able to make money while I'm on the beach? And there's no right or wrong answer, but it's figuring out what's actually going to work for you and aligning your business in that way. And it's such an integral part that can be implemented right today. And then look at whatever
Mm-hmm.
steps you're doing. Look at your calendar. Do you need all those things on your calendar? Is the
Mm-hmm.
main question.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are just little kind of um, assessment and alignment. It's kind of like an alignment checker that you can look and make sure that you're going down the right path for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
first of all. And then obviously, I'm always going to throw this in there. Do the introspection, do the manifestation. And manifesting too, I just want to point out there, it's also writing it on your calendar, as silly as that sounds. Like I take my whole year and I write down the trips that I want to take even before the money has come for those trips sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And just holding the belief that that's going to happen, because when we put things on our calendar that we want and we schedule it in, so to say, it's crazy how it can show up, can happen. Or, you know, if you want to be that successful coach or a retreat leader or whatever it is, put it in your bio. Even if it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't happened yet, it'll start to show up for you when you start going in that direction. So,
Mm-hmm. I love that. I'm gonna highlight. So first of all, I felt like you were talking right to me. Like, do you need that on your calendar? That's something I'm working on over here. Is like we need to clean up this calendar. So do you need it on your calendar? But I love that idea too of actually putting it like the trip or the thing that you want to do on your calendar and having
yeah,
the belief, you know, how you said it is like having the belief that it's going to happen. And then the same thing with like when I'm working with speakers and like, well, I'm not really doing a lot of speaking yet. And I'm like, say you're a speaker because that's what you're
yes,
working towards. And what you
yeah.
tell yourself is what becomes.
And what comes with that is the only difference between you being a speaker and being confident saying I'm a speaker and not is just a belief that you have in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm sitting here saying to you I'm a speaker, but I've never spoken, which isn't true,
Mm-hmm.
the other person doesn't care as much as we think. It's a limiting belief in ourselves that we have to shift that paradigm. The
Mm-hmm.
belief has to come first. And that's why the two components are so important, in my opinion, because, and that's my word of the year, by the way, believe.
Mm-hmm.
So the belief has to be there first, or we can't do anything. Like if you don't
Mm-hmm.
believe it for yourself, nobody else is going to help you believe that. The belief has to stem from you.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. Which is like a perfect transition into, you know, I always ask this at the end of podcast guests is the name of the podcast is It Starts With You. So
Mm-hmm.
in, you know, a few sentences or in a short amount, what does It Starts With You mean to you?
Ooh, everything we talked about.
Yeah. I feel like you just like you like segued into it
I
perfect.
know, I know. Well, and again, if we think about doing that introspection, and if you don't want to do it with a coach to start with, it's gonna be starting with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's also gonna end with you, right? It's gonna start with you, and then it's gonna be the best version of yourself that you're creating. So of course, everything that you're gonna be doing in your business and your life are for you, and it has to start
Mm-hmm.
there.
I love it. Start and
As
end. We're
corny
gonna
as that
add
sounds.
we're gonna add that in. It starts with you and ends with you. Ainsley,
Yes,
thank you so
absolutely.
much. This was such a great conversation, and I'm so excited to
Yeah.
go back and listen to parts of this too, where it's like, oh yeah, I needed to hear that again. So I know people are gonna want to stay connected. So can you
Yeah.
share with us where can people find you and what do you have going on right now?
Yeah, so I'm mainly on Instagram. That's kind of where I live. So you can find me at Coach Ansley Thrives, and I think Julie has a link for that if in
Mm-hmm.
case you need it, because my name is spelled Ansley. And right now, I am doing my $1 Million Mentor Program. It's one of my favorite programs. It's for coaches, leaders, and mentors. And actually, Julie, you're probably going to be coming in there a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. And so it's for anybody who wants to scale their business. And by scale, I mainly mean 7 figures, but it could mean 6, depending on, what that looks like for you. And we're going to be doing that with manifestation. We're going to be doing that. So doing all the work that we just mentioned, which is really
Mm-hmm.
integral to actually get the introspection and confidence that you need to charge high transformations. And I call them transformations. Basically, they're offers. So if you're a coach or
Mm-hmm.
consultant, you know what I'm talking about when you have an offer for somebody. But again, to get to that scaling point, we need to make sure that it's higher ticket or premium, and we're getting you the confidence to actually go out and do that. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I first started as a coach, that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, okay, I want to charge this amount, but how am I going to get people to pay it? That's a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from the inside first. It starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It just came
See?
naturally.
Boom, boom.
It came totally naturally. Yeah. So we got you all started with the nice hybrid that I've created, and we teach you kind of how to actually add value to your transformations and offers, not just slapping a price tag on there. It's what are you going to be doing for this money and getting behind that energy so that you can attract those beautiful soulmate dreamy clients.
I love it. I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll drop all the link for that in and to stay connected in the show notes.
Oh, and I also wanted to offer your guests, your podcast
Mhm.
listeners and guests, if they want to book a wealth success call with me, that's
Mhm.
completely complimentary to you guys. So the link will
Mhm.
be available as well. And basically, we go over, whether you have a business or not yet, we go over where you're at right now, where you want to be, and the actual steps that you need to take you there.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will drop all of that in the show notes. Make sure that you share this episode out, as you know, because I
Yes.
tell you is that, the best way to, thank Ainsley for coming on and to show us that you love it is to share it. Share the pieces that really stood out for you. Share it on social media. Make sure that you
Yeah.
tag both of us, leave a review. That is the way to get this out to more people and be able to help more people with this message. So thank you so much again for coming on and for
Thanks for having
sharing
me. I had
all
a
of your
blast.
wisdom.
Okay. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.